Half of customers rate their MSPs as meh. We'll talk about that with ProdigyTeks CEO Paco Lebron, as well as news from Atera and WatchGuard, plus a special guest interview with MJ Shoer of CompTIA on ISAOs and the benefit of collaboration in cybersecurity. It's ChannelPro Weekly, number 205, a lot of Wiffy. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 205. My name is Matt, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine program for the folks out there who are like you. And who are like you? You are like you. That makes sense. What do you like? You like you. No, that doesn't make any sense either. But what you do is you are a VAR, an IT integrator, a managed services provider, an IT consultant, something that has to do with computers, technology, cybersecurity, those kinds of things, you know, usually kind of the more digital computer stuff. That is you. If that doesn't sound like you, then listen in. You might be up for a career change soon, and you might learn a lot about it. So it's going to be an awesome show. Joining me this week, as most weeks, is the man of the hour, the guy who makes ChannelPro work and do all this kind of great stuff for you, executive editor Rich Freeman.
Hello, everybody. How
are you, Rich? You're on the road again. Were you home last week? I can't remember.
I was home for a couple of days last week, but I was on the road last week at an event in Miami for a while.
That's right. So you're like bouncing all over the place, like the good old days.
You know what? It's feeling a little bit more like the good old days lately. We're clearly not anywhere close to 100% back, but there's more stuff going on out there. There are more people attending the events that are happening. I think people are starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with that. And so, yeah, it's not, you know, we're not back to the way it was exactly. But it's certainly this time of year for a number of reasons. It's kind of gotten busy on the event circuit again.
Did you miss hotel rooms while you were being home a lot? Or is this like the least favorite part of travel?
You would be surprised how much I missed hotel rooms. I think most people would. You know, that for a lot of people is the sort of least interesting part about traveling. But for me, in a normal year, I spend so much time in hotel rooms that, yeah, you know, the little sort of paper cap on the glass, you know, and the wrapped ups, all those little things. It's like home away from home for me. And so, yeah, I do remember it was, I think, this spring, the first time that I went out on a road trip for business since the beginning of the pandemic. And it was like, hey, I'm back in a hotel room. It's great.
Paper cap on the thing, little bottles of shampoo and conditioner, low grade toilet paper and Kleenex. Yep, that is the way it should be, Rich. It is the way it should be. I am also very, very excited, and I'm going to tell you why. That's because you and I are not alone this week. Oh, no. We have someone who I love having on. I get excited every time I see him. He is the super, super awesome founder and CEO of ProdigyTeks.com. He's serving as a PC consultant dedicated to evolving the technology world and the people who want to embrace it. He has over 15 years of experience in the IT industry, today focusing on small business consulting and solutions. He is also the host of the MSP Unplugged podcast, which I highly recommend. It's awesome. Please welcome Paco Lebron. Welcome, Paco.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
I should say welcome back is would try to be the correct expression. Good to have you back on again.
Happy to be back.
So Paco, I gave a little bit of an overview about you, but why don't you take a couple minutes and tell us, those who may not have caught one of those earlier episodes you were on, tell us about you and what you do at ProdigyTeks.
Sure. Yeah. So we are a MSP out of Chicago in the West Loop. We primarily service small businesses, primarily in the manufacturing, legal, and the private healthcare space. We run about a 5-person team. Actually, as of just this Monday, hired my 5th employee for our help desk. So we're steadily growing. But an interesting fact, it was actually just myself. I was actually running the business as a solopreneur up until February of 2020. And then the pandemic hit and everyone needed help. So we aggressively expanded, and for good reason. So kind of running through those, not only as a business owner, but also as a manager, help desk manager, ensuring that we have good culture in the business. So it's been an interesting ride so far, along with, you know, as you mentioned, juggling the podcast duties, which there'll be some changes being announced here coming up soon, but got a lot more work on my plate to get some of the things going that we have going on.
Very cool. So that must have been kind of scary because you said you were a solopreneur for a long time. So
Yeah.
was it like nerve-wrackingly frightening to bring on your first like payrolled employee?
So I think yes, and in the aspect of, you know, you really are taking on someone's livelihood. And I think that's the biggest fear, is that, you know, you got to make this work, or, you know, they have a family to feed and they have to take care of their own responsibilities, and they're relying on you and your strategy and your your drive to get that going. So it was very scary, to the point even that my office manager, who actually left a client of mine to join me, and you know, having her those benefits and everything, to where she had a very great foundation there to jump on to a quote unquote startup. Even though we were doing this for over 7 years, it really was trying to get that expansive aspect of the IT business. So yeah, definitely scary in that realm. But definitely harder to expand and not be that guy or that gal to understand that, you know where all the bodies are buried. It's kind of the phrase I like to use, and really just taking that out from your mind and making sure you're transparent so everyone can do their job without needing you. And I guess that's the goal for every small business owner.
And so how fast did you go from 1 to, you just said 5? So how fast was that trajectory?
So we went to 3 to June, July on 2020. Then we had a couple of bad hires. We had a business development rep we brought on that we had to let go, just wasn't working out. But again, equal blame, because, you know, there's a lot of fault on both ends. So I would say we fluctuated up until about rounding around 5 to 6 since around midsummer of 2020. And then we kind of coasted on to 4, and then been back to 5 this past week. So I would say probably the duration of the pandemic that we're currently in is probably how that's been kind of going. But we expanded pretty fast in the beginning, just even down to hiring a human resources coordinator just as a contract project to get all like our manuals and stuff like that, just to make sure I had my P's and Q's done before going to like an outsourced thing, as an ongoing expense that we need.
That's very cool. Now, you said you're from the Chicago area, and when you use the expression "where all the bodies are buried," you're not being serious, right?
No, not at all. No, I'm not on that side of not that side of town. I'm not over on Taylor Street. So for all those Chicagoans that know, I'm not digging on it, but you know why I said it. So, but yeah, no, definitely not.
So you were just in Las Vegas, because I know that's where Rich is now. You were just in Vegas for a show. So
Yep.
You're getting back out and traveling again. How many events have you gone to?
So it's funny. So I've been trying to attend as many as I can, and even during the pandemic, just being responsible and socially distanced. I've attended quite a few. Actually just saw Rich over at the Acronis CyberFit Summit in Miami last week. I was actually at Channel Partners this week because I actually won the award for last year for the 2020 MSP 501. So their MSP Summit, and then their Next Gen Award this year with the DEI 101. So that was great. But didn't get to see Rich this time around. It was just so expansive. I saw Jay-Z, Joel Sadespinner, over at ChannelPro, but yeah, been traveling a little bit there. I think I'm done for the year. And then, have to also plan our own thing. That was kind of a big deal in September, that we had to, how you never enjoy your show. And I know you both know exactly what I'm talking about with this many as you throw. But yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing so far. So I have been traveling a little bit, just more on just understanding and engaging with the community more, just to get our skill sets ready. But I know IT Nation is happening next week. Would love to go, but so much stuff to do here. I got to kind of take it in strides.
Yeah, I was told that they had 5,600 people registered for this show. I don't know how many actually came, but it's got to be a few thousand people here. So it's not totally shocking that we didn't cross paths. Like, there are other people I know who I know are here. I've seen them talking about it on social media, who I just haven't seen. And that expo hall, that was a huge show floor. It's a big show. It's huge, yeah. You mentioned within the last year and a half or so, you've done some good hires and some not so good hires. Yep. I'm sure folks in the audience can relate to that. I mean, do you have any thoughts, based on what you've learned in the last 12, 18 months about hiring and how to improve your odds of getting the right person?
Yeah, I think we all think that we're good judge of character. And I think that's an avenue where you kind of get in trouble with, because the person may be great and they may be good. You may establish a good rapport, but they're not giving you the results you're looking for. And that's an important piece to understand, that you have to really understand what result you're looking for, and making sure you're not mashing up roles where, like, for example, like my business development rep, I unfortunately failed her because I combined a marketing admin and a business development rep role in one. Get the list, clean the list, then start going and being my appointment setter. And both are almost full-time jobs depending on what's the task and what's related to it. So if I'm saying, hey, how come we haven't gotten the appointment set, whatever the results was, 2 a week or whatever the case may be. Because I'm cleaning the list. Or, hey, why is there all this garbage data inside of HubSpot? Oh, it's because of, I didn't have the chance because I was appointment setting. So the mixed duties was a real big issue. And I think just understanding what your goals were and setting those metrics, because again, as you are doing yourself, you can understand your own pace and what you're looking for, but another person's pace may not align. And that's why it's so important to have metrics where, how many calls, how many are you looking to close? What are you trying to do? So these are all things that I knew, but had to formalize and hold someone to that standard. So those were a few things that we learned during the hiring and unfortunately firing process.
I think I told you this story last week at the Acronis show. I don't believe I told it on the podcast. I don't think I'm repeating myself for the audience, but it really kind of helped me understand, because you've had to staff up to deal with an increase in business. And there's obviously a lot of business for MSPs out there right now. It's like a huge growth time for anyone in managed services who really kind of knows what they're doing. 2 weeks ago, I was here in Las Vegas again, attending the CASEA event, and I had this random breakfast conversation with an MSP from the Chicago area, from where you are. And they have an office in downtown Chicago and one in Schaumburg and 2 others in other suburbs of Chicago. And, because I'm an idiot, right? I just figure, well, I know some MSPs in Chicago. Maybe he knows them. I start reeling off names. Hey, do you know Paco, for example? And he kind of gave me a weak little smile and sort of said, Rich, I've got within 1 square mile of my headquarters, there are 28 other MSPs doing business. And there is so much business out there for MSPs in Chicago that I only ever encounter one of those, like I'm only ever competing with one of those companies. That's how dense it is. And of course I heard this and I assumed, I was like, so that's your downtown Chicago office, right? He's like, oh no, that's Schaumburg.
Oh, got it. Yep. Yeah. And it's amazing because I think that's the big issue with a lot of my colleagues is they believe that everyone is a competitor, which, for the definition of competitor, yes, but like no MSP, IT business owner, ChannelPro, IT service provider can take on all that business in your area. Like, Jeff Hallish, when he runs his computer repair shop, he does a 6x6 radius. He will not travel out there because it's so much business, and 2, he doesn't like to travel that far. That's just how he is. Where, for my, exactly like you said, I can throw a stone and there's like at least 4 or 5 IT business owners that probably rent an address in the shared space that I ran out of, that are probably just using the address, and trying to run their practice from there, let alone, really huge and established firms like MXO Tech, Joanna Muroff, very great friend, and has been a mentor of me as I was kind of growing as well. There's just so many that are here, and we don't view each other as competitors because we all have different segments that we're chasing. We all have different type of clients. And even so, it's, again, there's so much business that's out there. Everyone can get a fair shake in what they're trying to do and whatever level they're trying to get to as well, especially in Chicagoland.
Yeah, it must be nice to be in an industry we can say, well, there's so much business that I couldn't possibly get I couldn't possibly do it all. So
yep.
The more the merrier. Very, very cool stuff. Well, Paco, I'm excited that you're here. I'm glad you're on with us. We're going to have you hopefully for the whole show. And we got some interesting things to talk about. So we're going to talk about Atera. They're in the news today. WatchGuard is in the news. We're going to talk about about how customers rate MSP's state of modernization. It's a funny way they rate it. We'll get to that later on in the show. Plus, we're going to have an interview with MJ Shoer of CompTIA. We're going to talk about ISAOs and collaboration in cybersecurity, which is going to be a fascinating conversation, and a whole lot more. So strap in. Here we go. Rich, Atera equips RMM software with artificial intelligence because we need AI in everything. Why not in your RMM too?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, this is the latest manifestation of a trend in RMM tools. And I think the tip of the iceberg, there's going to be a lot more of this coming. We've all known for years that, the key to profitability as an MSP is productivity for your technicians in particular. And there are all sorts of different ways to kind of help technicians be more productive. One of them is to take some of the really easy stuff out of their hands and automate it, do it for them. So Atera, for folks who aren't familiar with them, they have an RMM/PSA suite for managed services providers. They have about 7,000 partners, so they're not in the same tier as the Datto, ConnectWise, Kaseya, Enable companies, but they're up there with Ninja One and Pulseway and that sort of next tier down. And what they introduced this week, and they've been working on this a long time, is an artificial intelligence platform that they're calling Atera Plus. And basically what it does, when a technician creates a ticket, or when an end user goes into a self-serve portal and creates a ticket, the tool will read that ticket, interpret what it says, classify it, prioritize it based on the seriousness of the issue, and then route it for response. So it will basically do the triage process on that ticket for you automatically. And if it detects an issue that it knows how to solve, if there's a script basically in your library that's specifically targeted at this particular issue, the tool will attempt to resolve the issue on its own. If it does, it'll close the ticket. You essentially need to know nothing more about that than a ticket was opened, it was fixed, and it's done. If it tries to deal with it and can't deal with it on its own, obviously it will alert somebody, a human being, to step in and do that. Atera is saying that this, on average, cuts technician workloads by up to 30%. So that's a pretty significant productivity boost. And, from their perspective, Atera's perspective, and MSP's perspective, that's time that you can put into more important stuff. So, I mean, essentially that 30% that you're freeing up is the really easy, the password resets, the new customer onboarding, the stuff that kind of goes the same way each time and typically goes pretty smoothly. If you can hand that off to a robot, essentially, then you're freeing up the human beings for the stuff that only human beings can do. And again, like I said, this is part of a trend already, and I think there's going to be a lot more of this coming down the road. So Ninja One I mentioned before, they have an RMM tool. They also just within the last year introduced a ticketing system, not a full-blown PSA yet, but they're calling it a ticketing system. And their RMM tool now, based on what it sees happening in an end user environment, can open a ticket automatically, close the ticket automatically if it succeeds in resolving the problem. We have spoken in the not too distant past about a startup, a newcomer in the industry called SuperOps.ai. The .ai in their name is artificial intelligence. They are in the process. They're so new right now that they're basically in a listening phase, collecting input from MSPs. What would you want artificial intelligence to do for you? So that for them, that's coming down the road, but their vision very much is to create a highly automated AI fueled platform. And, again, it's all about productivity for MSPs. So I think more and more you're going to see the managed services tools MSPs rely on use AI to automate the stuff that can be taken out of a person's hands.
So it's a great place to pause and turn it over to Paco. So do you look for tools like this that are becoming more automated? Is this something that is of interest to someone like you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you said it right, Matt. It's automation. And I think everyone just chases that elusive, automation piece in any of their tasks, right? Whether that is in Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, RMM, PSAs, things like that. What is interesting to me about the article with Atera is this sounds like a lot of great information, and they're right. You know, whatever you can automate, it's going to free up time. Free up time makes more money, things of that nature. But I'm curious on what is the setup like? Is this out of the box integrated, or do you got to kind of set some of these things as well, right? Because automation, although great, you have to maybe fine tune it and kind of tinker with it as well. But it's a great thing to have. You know, I'm not an Atera partner, but I'm a Synchro partner, and there's something similar to this called ticket automation that they have that allows you to have certain type of setup and statuses, and it can kind of just resolve itself on its own if you kind of have those mundane like password resets or things of that nature for onboarding. But it depends on how you connect them and how you kind of breeze through that. So you know, and I always laugh when vendors use AI, right? I think it's just, you know, what they've used for like big data, what it was called back in like the 2000s and so forth and so on. But yeah, automation is key. And I think that is something that all of us are chasing, especially if you're on the smaller side. I think if you're a smaller managed service provider, ChannelPro IT service provider, you're looking to do whatever you can to free up your hands so you can get into something else. So definitely a tool that is always being looked at, especially for us too.
That's an interesting point, Paco. Now, Rich, did they say, like when they say AI, is this system learning in real time and adapting and becoming better, or is it just they've added in stuff to automate?
So I believe it is learning and getting smarter about, you know, what a ticket is saying. You know, its ability to read the ticket, I think, and act on it will be getting better over time. The thing I don't know that I'm interested in, and this goes to what you were talking about, Paco, is how much does this underlying engine learn about you? Because what's true at your company might not be quite the same, you know, across the industry. And so does the platform get smarter at understanding your particular tickets, or is it just sort of learning from everything that's going on? I don't know.
It's still super cool, the fact that it does have that learning event capability.
Yeah, that is neat. Now, they also talking here a little bit about cost, that they say that an attractive factor about this is that it's affordable. They say it's $89 a month for their entry-level edition per technician, or $169 for the top of the line version of this tool. I'm not overly familiar with the cost of RMM and ticketing stuff. Is that, Paco, is that reasonable? Is that affordable?
Yeah, so they're actually using a quite of a unique model. Actually, Synchro uses a per user model as well, which is kind of, I believe, where a lot of RMMs are starting to think that's where it makes more sense. But typical RMM are usually charging per endpoint. I think the fact of the focus of per user pricing is starting to become bigger and bigger now in our industry. So that pricing does sound on par for what that would cost for an RMM and PSA tool. But yeah, you know, I think Atera and Synchro are probably one of the two only that are doing that per user. I think there may be one other doing a per user model, which I believe is MSP 360, but I could be wrong. But I know others are doing it per device. But yeah, it is on par. It seems very affordable, and definitely something people should take a look at for sure if that's going to help them out on onboarding their systems more efficiently.
Yeah, and so there's. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Oh, well, I just want to point out that the pricing we're talking about is for the entire RMM tool, not just this AI piece of it that we've been talking about.
Okay.
Oh, right. Yep, that's the whole thing. So lots more interesting numbers and some data points in here in this article. And folks, we put the articles, links to the articles for everything that we talk about on the show. If you're on your phone, open up the description area for the episode. You should see it in there. If you're on an iPhone, you have to go to channelpronetwork.com and find the show sheet for episode 205. We'll put all the links in there for you to check out. If you're on YouTube, open up the description area. We'll put the links in there for you as well. So, and if you're on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe. Hit the little bell as well. All that helps. Leave a comment too. Comments are great. So make sure you do that as well. Rich, our next story is about WatchGuard. They've added some new things to manage through their cloud management portal. What did they add?
They added some brand new Wi-Fi 6 enabled access points. And for WatchGuard partners, or for somebody like me who watches WatchGuard, if you will, this is not quite the culmination, not quite the end point, but this is like a significant milestone in this long-term journey. Because going back to like 2017, 2018, I met with some of their folks, and they were telling me about this new portal, this new sort of centralized management interface that they were creating called WatchGuard Cloud. And the vision was that everything they offer was going to be available to manage, to buy, support through this one interface, instead of having to use something that's product specific or specific to a product category, because they're in a number of different product categories. They were going to pull all that together into a single interface. And so they started out with putting the firewalls and the ability to buy and manage the firewalls into WatchGuard Cloud. Firewalls obviously is what WatchGuard is still best known for. They added on their MFA software to WatchGuard Cloud in June just this year. They added their endpoint protection software. You might remember WatchGuard purchased a company called Panda Security some time back. And so now, those three categories have all been represented in WatchGuard Cloud. What they did this week is add the first three of what will eventually be a much bigger selection of wireless access points to the WatchGuard Cloud. And so that's sort of the last unrepresented product category from this company in that system. So now, at least if you're working with their newer access points, everything that you do with WatchGuard, you can now do through this single interface, which again kind of comes back to productivity, right? 95% of MSP executives that WatchGuard surveyed said that switching between multiple interfaces to manage security decreases productivity and efficiency. I'm sure everybody in the audience here can relate to that. So you can kind of understand why this has been a multi-year priority for WatchGuard to pull everything together. And this is, it's kind of a big landmark moment for them that that all the different product categories they play in are all represented in this tool now. Now, they, in conjunction with that landmark, they introduced 3 brand new wireless access points for different size environments that are all Wi-Fi 6 ready. Those are the 3 access points that you can take care of through WatchGuard Cloud right now. Anything that they introduce down the road, obviously, will be included in that as well. But if you're working with their older APs at this point, you're still using that older kind of access point specific interface. So there's still a little bit of a transition time before everything is in the one place. But every kind of product they sell is there now, at least.
So a couple different angles of the story. Paco, do you want to comment on the integration to the tool, or do you want to talk about the new access points?
I would say the integrations is what stands out to me because it's so true. I think that, you should be, and especially in this day and age, you should work with a vendor that has a cloud interface. I think that is such a huge benefit to a organization because for twofold. One, it avoids the truck rolls and you can actually monitor everything remotely and kind of handle it that way. And then 2 is just making sure, having that multi-tenant, the ability to monitor your customers, having it in one dashboard, having to be able to monitor all the equipment. It just helps so much easier. And, for me, if a networking vendor doesn't have a cloud interface, I won't even look at them because I just I want to avoid having to log into that thing locally or have to manage it on each individual tenant. I think this is a great opportunity where if you have that cloud interface available, definitely utilizing it.
Very cool. Sounds good. No, they didn't talk about the article doesn't have a whole lot about the new access points or like pricing, but there is an interesting statistic in here that I thought was kind of neat. And Rich, you threw this in at the bottom that the Wi-Fi Alliance expects 2 billion Wi-Fi 6 device shipments in 2021, rising to 5.2 billion in 2025. That's a lot of billions.
That's a lot of plastic.
That's a lot.
Yeah. That's a whole lot of access.
That's a lot of Wiffy. Holy moly. Yeah. Did you look at the new access points? They look pretty nice. What do you think, Paco?
Yeah, they do look nice. I think, a lot of them use that round out access point, and if they're easy to mount, more the better.
Yeah, it shows that they're doing the 3 models are kind of geared by usage. So there's one that's for low density environments, one for kind of medium density environments, and one for high density environments. I guess you pick whichever one based on whichever one makes sense for what you're doing. So pretty cool stuff. So go and check those out. Very interesting stuff. The next story we're going to get to, I think that's all for news, right, Rich?
That's correct.
Okay, so the next story we're going to talk about is how customers rate MSP's state of modernization. Apparently, about half of these customers rate MSP's state of modernization as meh. Tell us about that, Rich.
Yeah, you know what? And this is based on research from a managed service provider called MicroAge. And it should be kind of a wake-up call in either a good way or a not good way, I think, for a lot of folks who are listening or watching right now. MicroAge went out and surveyed people who are working with an MSP. 55% of the people who they reached out to said that the technological capabilities of their current managed service provider are cutting edge. 45% said that the technological capabilities of their current MSP are either middle of the road or, quote unquote, in the dark ages. So we were talking before, I mean, there are a lot of MSPs out there, but that doesn't mean they're all doing a good job. In fact, there are a lot of them out there who are maybe not doing a very good job. Let's get into this just a little bit further. In particular, when you start asking MSP customers, well, where maybe is your current MSP lacking a little bit? Top two things on the list: cloud strategy and security. What are the two areas where you can't afford to be weak right now? Cloud strategy and security. These are the two problems that people are most likely to have with their current MSP. Let's see, 46% of survey respondents say either cloud strategy or cloud services is an area where they struggle with a lack of support. Interestingly enough, and this is a recurring theme here, only 26% of the people in the survey think that an MSP could help in that area. So 46% of the survey respondents say, I need help with cloud services or cloud strategy. Only 26% think that this is something that an MSP can do. These are all companies working with an MSP now, and they don't even know they should be talking to their current MSP about cloud services and cloud strategy. Similarly, only 31%, and this is amazing to me, only 31% of respondents are using an MSP for help with security. They don't even know that they can have that conversation with the company that they're dealing with right now. 23% had no idea their current MSP offers cloud services. 50% were in the dark about whether or not the MSP can help them on cloud strategy. 52% don't know one way or the other if their MSP offers security services. So that, there are a number of lessons that I think emerge from this. First of all, your customer is unlikely to buy the services that you sell unless they know you offer those. So you really need to be talking to the customer about everything that you do and helping them understand the value of those things. And also, I mean, we were talking before, there's a lot of business out there, but there's also, if you are talking to clients about this kind of stuff and you have all these capabilities, there is a lot of room that, don't be intimidated by the fact that you're going after a customer that already has an MSP, because the company they're working with, it may at a minimum be doing a bad job of communicating their value and what they can bring to the table, or they may just be doing a bad job, period, because there's data in here that reflects or implies both of those.
Interesting. So the first thing I want to talk about before we dive into it is the term the dark ages. Now, do they actually say that their MSP is like offering technology from the 10th century? Is that what they mean by that, Rich?
I didn't get a copy of the survey, so I don't know, because typically there's survey language that helps the person understand what, when we say dark ages, we mean, is it all like bricks and or is there actually electronics involved? Yeah, I don't know how they defined in the dark ages.
So Paco, let's do a little quiz. Name 3 medieval technologies from the dark ages that MSPs are apparently half of our offering.
It has to be either the guillotine, got to be the mace, and it has to be, I'm assuming, the good old bow and arrow. It has to be.
I think the bow and arrow precedes the dark ages.
Okay, so then it's got to be the good old moat then as a follow-up.
We got digging ditches. Let's see. I got a list up here. So the windmill is a medieval achievement. So we
what
have
about the
MSPs.
catapult?
I don't see the catapult on the list. That's probably around that time, I would think. There's not a lot of technology. Did they, I don't think they had computers in the 10th century, though. They had hammers.
So. A couple of chisels and some stone.
I got to say, I like the sound of either a bow and arrow or a mace as another layer in a layered security strategy. Because man, alive,
talk about access control.
Yes, protect your customers online and offline with the power of the mace. Hit them over the head with it. I love it. So, Rich, there's a lot to dig in here. Paco, let me turn it to you. What do you think? What do you think about that number? That there's so many MSPs out there that their customers say that they're not offering them good service. So, as you said, there's more business than ever, right? And
right.
Half the customers that have MSPs are unhappy with them. What does that mean for the channel?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because there's so much to peel back on, because it can mean so many things. It could be, the MSP is doing a bad job of marketing, right? And explaining to their customers on what they do. And I think that's a big issue. Like, I think Carrie Simpson over at, I think it's Managed Sales Pro still. I know she sold one of the outfits that she had. But, Carrie had a book that I downloaded that she had in one of her sessions, which a lot of MSPs neglect their current customer base, which, they have the most strongest relationship with you. And if you are really understanding their needs and need to improve their cybersecurity posture, they're the ones most likely to purchase from you on that aspect of trust. Whereas on the flip side, a lot of us try to chase new business because our mentality is get as much customers, add on to the level and things of that nature. But really strong organizations get a lot of their sales from their upsells and their current customers. So the fact that, and this percentage that MSPs customers don't know, it's a bad marketing strategy is what I would imagine. And two, it could be like they said, dark ages. Like for me, when I hear dark ages, I'm thinking the MSP that's been in business for 30 years and thinks the cloud is a fad and that everything will end up coming back down to on-prem for whatever reason, right? I think that there was a study that, I don't know if Rich, was it at Channel Partners or if it was at Acronis, I think it was at Acronis, that they said that it was going to be by X year, there will not be any non-smart devices created. Right. And everything's just going to be tied into that network. So, yeah, I just think that with those two avenues of MSPs, we just have to step up in either our service or our communication to our clients, even if it's down to a newsletter, which, my previous service manager said that's what he did in his old MSP. He would send out a newsletter of, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the service we offer. Contact us if you want to do this. And that actually helps you with a liability standpoint, where if the client ever said, hey, we didn't know you offered this and we had X happen to us. Well, we sent this newsletter. It shows you read it. What can we do? But, I think it's just the communication part. I think communication and just stepping up in those two avenues.
So what are some of the other things that you do to ensure that your customers wouldn't rate you this way?
Sure. I think it's that communication piece, like I mentioned, being able to, if you're comfortable with it, having those in-person meetings. I think we all have jobs and things we need to do to go into the office at one point or another. For those that still have offices, schedule a good couple hours a week, have a field day if you have the availability to do so. Meet and greet, shake hands, bring donuts to the staff, whatever. And really just understanding what they have going on. And then once you understand what they have, you can plug in what that piece is. Because I can tell you, in every conversation, there's always a tidbit that you can take away. And there's never going to be everything's great, dandy, if you don't ask the questions. Because, the silent customers are the one you have to worry about, because you just don't know if they're complacent or maybe they're looking because they haven't heard from you and they think you're not doing anything. I know QBRs, TBRs, however you call them nowadays, are very big, but just having that open conversation. So that's what we do. I schedule out a week. I have a lot of my customers where there's pending projects, but I also use it as an opportunity to talk to the business owner, my point of contact, understand what they're going on, kind of update them what's going on in the industry, and kind of resell them on some of the updates that we have. And usually it's not a huge deal because I have that FaceTime with them and they understand that I care. And I think that's going back to having that trust. If your clients know that you're there and they trust you, they're going to follow your word, and you should build a good confidence on who's going to follow your lead and who's going to just, may not be a good fit as a customer as well.
Right. It's interesting you brought up complacency, though, because the article here says that even though there's such a high percentage of MSPs or of customers that may not look at their MSPs in the most positive of light, 88% of them plan to stay with them anyway.
Yeah.
So is it really, are you really that sticky to somebody, or do they just not know any better, or is no other MSP approaching them, trying to offer them something better?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's, clients hate change. I can tell you right now, I have one client that I just hadn't seen in over a year because of the pandemic, because they've just been paying the bill. And every time I talk to them, they're like, yeah, everything's great, man. I can't believe you took out the time to talk to me. Awesome. And he's the guy that just keep paying the bill. He'll stay for as long as it is because he hates change. And the moment he made that change, he's hoping I'm going to stay up with him, which, that's our due diligence. We have to. But had it been someone else, yeah, someone could be just getting a nice free day every month and thank you for your business and go from there. But you did make a good point where stickiness is a huge factor of that. Maybe they do suck, but they may be locked into a contract and they're hoping that they're going to get better, or they've completely enabled their infrastructure that it has to go through this IT business owner or this MSP, and either A, it's going to be a pain to rip it out, or B, it's not worth the hassle to go through this company because of the bad relationship they may or may not have.
Maybe they've threatened them with a guillotine to cut off their heads.
Go through this door if you want to leave.
See that basket on the ground? Yours could be in there next. Yeah, interesting stuff, Rich. Now, is there links to go see a lot more of this data? Where is this report?
I am looking to see. I don't know that we linked to it specifically in the article here. So there is obviously in the show notes a link to our coverage of this survey. The survey is from a company called MicroAge, one word. The name of the survey, if you want to look it up online and find it, is the State of Managed Services Providers Report 2021.
MicroAge, kind of like Dark Age, only MicroAge. Very interesting stuff. Well, cool things. Go check that out. Lots of numbers, percentages, and interesting factoids. And important to note that you got to keep your customers happy, because even though they might be planning to stay put now, it's important to know what they think of you. And I know I was about to move on, but Paco, I want to ask you one question. Do you survey your own customers? Like, do you do this frequently to kind of gauge what your customers think of you, or are they dishonest about their answers?
So it's interesting you say that. So every time we close out a ticket, there's a survey that gets sent out to our clients, but oftentimes either they don't get filled out, or maybe they just may click and go from there. So we thought, okay, how can we gauge them a little bit better? All right, let's implement a review system. So we work with this review system. It sends out an automated email. Hey, would you like to review us? If it's bad, we can catch it, talk to them. If it's good, hey, do you want to post it on our several review sites to help drive business that way? That gained traction, but we felt like they were just giving us the nice answers, but never really what was really going on. So I had to take it the next further, where going in person so I can see the cues, see kind of what's going on with the conversation and understand what's happening. You could probably achieve this with a video call or a phone call, but I think that one-to-one touch allowed me to better understand what's going on. And yeah, I mean, there were some clients where, it feels like I have my hand on the rope just enough. There's some that feel like it's slipping to the point where I really need to step up and make sure there's attention paid for. And again, can be solved by different things: hiring staff, understanding your processes, get better at your improvements. Everyone has their own way to work through that. But yeah, that's kind of what we've kind of gravitated toward, to be able to at least stay in front of mind and just understand that A, are they okay? But two, are we doing a good enough job in their eyes?
Cool. And that's something a lot of MSPs should do. And if you only want good answers, bring a mace with you and stand there and just kind of go like this while you're asking the questions. And they'll say nice things, I promise. All right, we're going to move on. I'm really excited. We got an awesome interview coming up with MJ Shoer from CompTIA. We're going to be talking a little bit about ISAOs, which is a pretty cool concept, and collaboration in cybersecurity. So awesome stuff. Paco is going to be joining us for that interview. Stick around. We'll be back in just a second.
Ready to grow your business in ways you haven't even imagined yet? Tune in to B2B Tech Talk, Ingram Micro's global podcast, to hear what's next in the IT space. Industry leaders, subject matter experts, and more share their valuable insights to provide listeners with the best growth opportunities, with some interesting stories sprinkled in along the way. Listen, subscribe, and follow B2B Tech Talk wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, because it's time to imagine more.
And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. You know, two minds are better than one, says the old expression about teamwork, and it makes sense. Tackling difficult challenges is easier when you're not doing it alone. And keeping customers safe from the magnitude of cyber threats out there is a colossal undertaking, but why do that alone? In fact, you don't have to. Here to talk about ISAOs, how they can benefit channel partners, and the power of collaboration and teamwork in the cybersecurity space is MJ Shoer from CompTIA. Welcome, MJ.
Hey, Matt, thanks so much.
It's great to have you on. I'd love it if you take a few minutes to tell us a little bit about you and your role at CompTIA.
Sure. So I'm MJ Shoer, as you said. I'm Senior Vice President and Executive Director of the CompTIA ISAO. But before that, I was an MSP for about 25 years. I had my own MSP up in New England, about an hour north of Boston, in the seacoast of New Hampshire, for just shy of 20 years. Sold that to a friendly regional competitor, rolled up into that organization. And then we were subsequently acquired by a national MSP. So I've lived the small entrepreneurial MSP, the more mid-sized established MSP, and the large national MSP. And after my contract was up, I decided I wanted to try something new. So I was doing some consulting, and then was asked to come on board and run the CompTIA ISAO, which is where I am now, obviously. And it just, as I like to say, it feels like the right thing at the right time for all the right reasons.
Wow, so you've been in the space and you've seen all angles. If I can ask, of the small, the medium, and the large, what did you like the best?
Oh boy. That's a good question. They each have their good sides, and they each have their stressful sides, right? You know, when you're a small MSP, and it's your baby, as they say, you don't always have the best night's sleep. You worry about a lot. You've got to make payroll every week. You've got to grow your business, scale your business, take care of your customers. But it was an amazing, I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And candidly, the only reason why I decided to sell the business at the time that I did was because we were at an inflection point. Due to some family circumstances in my personal life, I had to take my eye off the business for a little while to care for some aging family members. And when I was able to, come back and focus, I realized that through no fault of anyone's, the business had kind of stagnated in the last year or so. And so, I knew there were some things that I wanted to change and some changes I wanted to make in order to get us back on the growth track that we had been on for many years. And then I was not looking, but the opportunity came to me to sell to this, as I said, friendly regional competitor. I remember we got together for lunch one day and we're just chit-chatting like we usually do. We would get together every now and again and said, so what do you think about, selling the business to us and merging in? And I said, I think that wasn't the conversation I was planning on having today. But, when I thought about it and I looked at it and I looked at what I felt, in my soul was going to be best for our staff, best for our customers, and this would make a lot of sense. And so, we did it, and that was great. And that was a lot of fun, to go from being a small MSP where sort of you're it in terms of leadership and as you're trying to grow your structure, to then be part of a 5-person executive team running this larger MSP. That was awesome. That was a whole lot of fun. And we did a lot of things really well. When we sold to the national MSP, we had a lot of great hopes and ideas, and they didn't all play out. That was kind of the typical, acquisition where you think things are going to go one way, but they kind of go another way. And it was just, it was clear to me that it was time to get out of the way and move on. And that was a good experience too, because, we were dealing with a much larger physical footprint, very, very diverse customer base. We have the classic integration challenges. What I'll say is we had a cultural mismatch there that didn't really show up until we were well down the road of having come together. And had we realized the cultural mismatch up front, I'm not so sure we would have done that deal. But we thought that it was a match, and then it turned out not to be a match. And that happens sometimes. So, you learn from every experience, right? And you learn to take the good along with the bad and make yourself and hopefully you're providing better opportunities for your teams and your clients. And that's what we do.
Yeah, it's amazing how much culture makes a difference. And Paco, in your experience too, just even bringing on one employee, that the culture and fit is really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, I think to be exactly like you said, MJ, it's one of those where trying to get the best feel for everyone involved is such a huge impact on your bottom line, because, if you have someone where the culture is not there, that struggle tends to really affect not only just bottom line, but productivity as well. And then your customers feel that. So that's why I've always I forgot who had the saying, but it's treat your employees well first before their customers, because it trickles down to that great customer experience.
Absolutely. When I was running my MSP, I always had this mantra, and I still carry it with me today as well, which is that, I'll never ask someone to do something I'm not willing to do myself. Doesn't mean I should do it, but I want to know what I'm asking my team to do. And I want to make sure that I'm making fair requests of them and setting them up to succeed, not fail. And I think that holds true no matter what size organization you're in. I think that's just good leadership, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you go to CompTIA yourself? Like, was there like a job opening that says come run an ISAO, or was
no?
This, how'd you fall into this?
Yeah, funny story. Rich knows it, but I was I was a CompTIA member. I went to my first CompTIA event. I think it was in 2004. So the whole time I was an MSP, I was a CompTIA member. Back in 2005, I had the good fortune to be asked to serve on the CompTIA board of directors. And so I served a term on the board of directors and really got to know the organization, and then rolled off the board. Subsequently was asked to come back on the board. And I actually served 3 years as chairman of the board between 2011 and 2015, if I remember correctly. So it's funny. I've always been a highly engaged member of CompTIA. Never did I have in my sights or in the roadmap working for CompTIA. This was quite I don't know if happenstance is the right word, but it certainly wasn't a planned progression. I was doing some consulting, and I was recruited to come in and consult on an ISAO, and we very quickly determined that the ISAO needed to live inside of an established, respected nonprofit organization. So CompTIA was the natural fit, and so CompTIA asked me to undertake a 3-month project, a 90-day project, really, to just look at the viability of an ISAO as a CompTIA offering. And I did that. And then ultimately, I helped CompTIA stand the ISAO up, and one thing led to another. And they asked me if I would consider coming to work full time and running the ISAO full time for CompTIA, and I was very humbled by that request. And I was at a very fortunate juncture where I was able to very quickly and gracefully hand off my clients to other consultants that I trust in the industry. So I was able to give all of my clients that I was working with a nice soft landing and transition into this. So it's kind of funny. As I said, I never in my wildest dreams expected to be working for CompTIA, but I sincerely mean it when I say right thing, right time, right reasons. I couldn't be happier and prouder to be associated with CompTIA as a member of the team.
That's cool. It's amazing how things just kind of happen and you land where you land. Yeah. That's for sure. So I'll go ahead and I'll ask the simple question, because a lot of people may not know what an ISAO is or have heard of it. Tell us what an ISAO is.
Sure. So great question, and something we found was really important when we stood this up back in March of 2020. We spent probably good portion of the next year educating people on what an ISAO is. So an ISAO stands for an information sharing and analysis organization. And some of our listeners may be familiar with ISACs, which are very, very similar. The difference is just the last letter. Those are information sharing and analysis centers. Those were created in the late 90s under the Bush administration to focus on critical infrastructure segments. So when you talk about ISACs, you will hear about financial services ISAC, healthcare ISAC, aviation, nuclear energy, natural gas, on and on. Critical infrastructure, utilities, electric, telecom, etc. The whole premise was to foster the sharing of cyber threat intelligence between the government and private enterprise to protect the critical infrastructure from attack. That was the whole framework. Based on the success that that model had, in 2015, the Obama administration put forth the concept of extending that model to more of the private sector, allowing trade associations like CompTIA or other communities of interest or vertical industries to come together as an ISAO, the difference being information sharing and analysis organization. We do the same things. We collaborate with government. We're part of the Homeland Security Information Network. We're part of the Cyber Information Sharing Partnership, both in the US and the UK. So we bring together, what an ISAO does is brings threat intelligence from a multitude of sources, public and private, analyzes that threat intelligence, issues alerts to their members. And we've taken things, being the trade association that we are and being the community-minded organization that we are, we've taken things to building out a trusted community that can collaborate and share best practices in real time. We've brought in a lot of tools that I think, the simplest way to say it would be too expensive for most MSPs, certainly most SMB MSPs, to consider bringing into their toolboxes. We're making that available through the CompTIA ISAO, because there are a lot of organizations out there that understand the moral, ethical imperative of this fight we're in around cyber and are willing to step forward as good corporate citizens and extend benefits through the CompTIA ISAO that wouldn't necessarily be available. So what do I mean by that? I mean, certain premium Intel feeds that would carry a subscription fee. We're paying those fees, bringing that in, making it available. The cyber analysts that you need to analyze this stuff and produce reports, we pay for those people. Most MSPs, I know, thinking back to my own MSP, we back in the day, of course, fast forward to today, things are different, but the economics of it are such that most MSPs can't afford a true cyber analyst or threat hunter on staff. So we're able to provide that capability. We have a partnership with Sophos, for example, and they make their Sophos Labs Intellic system available to our members. We've just partnered with Security Scorecard and released a benefit called the CompTIA ISAO Cyber Risk Rating, powered by Security Scorecard, which gives every member free access to their security grades. It's just like the nightmare from grade school, right? Did I get an A or an F? But it's just one measure. It's not the be all end all, but it is a measure of an organization's cybersecurity posture. And our members can use the tool to monitor their customers and vendors. And we're monitoring the whole ecosystem and providing average scores of different types of vendors, for example, to try and really raise the bar of the industry. So there's a lot that we have going on. We have an online cyber forum where our, typical online forum where members can collaborate and communicate and share. We also have a monthly member meetup where we bring members together in a Zoom setting, not recorded, nothing's off the table, ask whatever you want. We get a lot of great ideas from those sessions of things that, really help the members. The most important thing we do is we produce threat reports. And so if you remember newspapers, those funny things, we've really adopted rather the newspaper methodology of above the fold, below the fold, right? Above the fold, you want to put the eye-catching headline, the brass tacks of what the issue is, and then below the fold can be all the gossip, right? So when we issue a threat report, it's a quick, easy to digest summary of what the issue is. Analyst comments that may be a paragraph, maybe two, that really explain what the risk is to an MSP and to their customers. And then the most important part, what do you do about it? Here are the available fixes or mitigations or workarounds. And then here's all the technical babble that you could ever want. If you want to hunt on TPPs and IOCs, and I could throw acronyms at you like there's no tomorrow, we'll provide it because some of our members do have that expertise. But for those who don't, we make it easy to understand, easy to take action on, and we also give our members full access to our threat intelligence platform behind all this. So those organizations that want to get into the weeds and want to, push and develop their skill sets, we're here to help. We're 100% driven by the mission. We're a not-for-profit trade association. Every penny that comes in dues goes right back into running the ISAO. So it's truly member-led, and I'm really gratified to see that we've got a lot of members who are getting great value and fixing some things, fixing some exposures that they've got, and preventing some things from happening in their organizations. Nobody says it better than our members, so I won't say it for them, but we've got a lot of great stories from members about how it's making an impact, and so that's what drives me every day.
So MJ, just really quick, for me being more of the smaller size MSP and looking into, this is a great avenue for us to try and understand what's going on. I want to dial back to that score you mentioned. Yeah. Is that score really meant for an organization to take back and regurgitate for their clients, understanding their internal aspects and their clients' pieces? Or is this more of an overall view of what's kind of going on in the state and trying to understand how to relay that back to the clientele and get better as an organization?
So that part of it, Paco, is more around the threat intelligence reporting that we do and the weekly reports that we put out. And sure, I do a weekly podcast, like a 10-minute summary of, what were the top things that we saw in the ISAO the prior week. That really addresses that aspect of it. Gotcha. The cyber risk rating, that score, is a view of your cybersecurity posture to the world. So it's a non-invasive scan that's done and continuously updated. It does have the ability to look a little bit behind the curtains, but what it basically says is, are you doing the right things in securing your organization, in your public-facing posture to the world? So that's why I said it's one measure, but it is a very, very important measure, because obviously if you have a lot of vulnerabilities or insecurities around that posture, that points to some systemic concerns that go far behind the firewall. So it's an important measure. It's a scientifically derived measure. Security Scorecard publishes some really great analysis of their algorithms and how they do these scores. What I love about it is it's also super actionable. So when you see a vulnerability, you can actually drill through on that vulnerability and get to a page. It's like we were meant to partner, because you get to a point where they do a very similar thing, an above the fold, below the fold kind of idea where, okay, here's what this risk is, here's what it means, and here's how to fix it. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, wait, did you do that just for us? But it just makes sense, right? It's an easy way to digest and process. So there are very prescriptive action steps that an organization like yours can take to improve your score. And then ultimately, you can print out what's called a summary report that ranks your scoring across 10 risk factors and then shows a beautiful chart of how you compare to industry average. And so when you've got an A and you're at or above industry average across, that is a powerful, powerful piece to show to your customers, to your insurance carrier, to your partners, that really show, okay, this MSP, this guy Paco, he knows what he's talking about. He's doing the right things. He's keeping, keeping his business secure and monitoring it. It's a great reporting tool that gives a third-party analysis of your organization, and then to use that with your customers to help your customers do the same thing. That's huge.
If they bring their grade up from like a C to an A, does CompTIA take them out for ice cream?
Well,
that's what my parents used to do when I got good grades.
Hadn't thought about it. We could. What was interesting, all kidding aside, the most interesting thing when we launched it the first week of October. In the first week, we saw an 85% increase in the number of organizations with an A. There were like 150 companies that like scooped this, no pun intended, with ice cream, right? Scooped it up in the first week, and they cleaned their acts up quite a bit. So it was interesting. There was good reception to this, and I think it's a pretty good, an excellent tool to have in the toolbox for sure. And the irony is, security scorecard was great. I mean, they were a classic example of a company doing the right thing for the right reasons. We negotiated a deal with them to make this available to all of our members, and our membership dues are like about half of what it would cost if the company went out and subscribed directly. So it's like, wait a minute, but that's what we do, right? That's what a not-for-profit trade association does. We try to do good things for the community to help the community be better. Our mission statement is to advance the cybersecurity resilience of the global tech industry. And it's really, if you talk to members of the team, everybody's, not to get kind of melancholy about it, but everybody has a really long strategic view of this mission. It's like, we need to do this to help the world. We've got to protect our global economies, protect our free societies, and the cybersecurity risks that exist out there and the bad actors that are out there. They're leveraging technology to destabilize our world, and we feel like if we've got a chance to do one little thing and help MSPs and the whole ecosystem push back and fight back against that, we're compelled to do it. And that's, for me personally, that's an amazing place to be in my career, to be able to try and have that kind of impact. And it's only because of the incredible team that I work with that we're making progress there, and we're hoping to continue to do good things that help everybody.
MJ, for somebody in the audience who might be concerned a little bit about noise, like how many threat reports on average do you folks issue? How often do reports go out? And how serious does an issue have to be to sort of qualify for a threat report?
Yeah, great question, Rich. So it's interesting, we just, in October, we issued our 1000th report since we started. We started in September of 2020 issuing reports. So that's, if I remember my numbers right, that's roughly 70 odd reports a month on average. Now, what we do is we classify them. So there's one classification of alert called a breaking news alert, and we reserve those for the things that are in the wild, if you will, active threats, things that pose a clear and present danger in the here and now. So members can tune the alerting that they get from us. So, a member can say, okay, I want to get an email or some other type of alert every time a breaking news alert hits. Well, that's not going to send you 1,000 alerts over that time frame. That's going to trim that down a bit. But so we classify, we've got about a half a dozen different classifications of alerts. And so we use that classification to let our members tune that, but we put it in the hands of the member. The member has complete control over what they want an immediate alert on, what they might want to get in a digest summary, or do they just want to go log into the cyber forum and check themselves. We give them complete control over how to consume for that exact reason, so as not to overwhelm. But I do know that several members have said that they have shared with me that they're pumping those critical alerts, they're pumping those into a Teams channel or a Slack channel, for example, that they've got their senior engineers or whomever is tasked with monitoring cybersecurity threats, constantly monitoring.
What's the role of security vendors in the ISAO? Are they providing threat intelligence, or how do they kind of factor into this?
Yeah, so a couple different ways. We have we have two classifications of vendor membership. We have something called an industry partnership, and then we have just a straight vendor membership. An industry partnership, those companies have invested in the ISAO, in the running of the ISAO. So they help subsidize the costs of running the organization. And in exchange for that, we give them a certain amount of memberships in the ISAO that they can gift to their partners as a thank you for that investment. Because where this came from is we started the ISAO, we officially launched the CompTIA ISAO March 1st, 2020. I think we all know what happened 12 days later. Oops. And here I am trying to start up something new. And I'm like, oh my God, where am I going to get the funding from? Because CompTIA, like every organization, went into a protective stance to make sure that we protected our teams and the core business, because we are a self-funded not-for-profit. We have our certification business, which drives the revenue that supports what we do on the association side. So the team got together and put their heads together, and with Nancy Hammervick's leadership, she came up with this idea of industry partners where, oops, sorry, puppy in the office, right? It's the world we live in now. We came up with this model where vendors could step forward, provide some funding. We would give them back the equivalent in free memberships that they can offer to their customers. Those vendors also typically, like Sophos, provide us some type of threat intelligence or tool that we can make available to our members. That's part of the whole industry partner model, is that deep collaboration in providing something out to the member that they wouldn't necessarily get if they were a partner or not a partner of the given company, unless they subscribe to something else. Then we have the whole group of just vendor members who just want to be involved in the ISAO and contribute. And they contribute by posting in the forums. We do have a vendor report category so that vendors can post any of their threat intelligence or reporting that they do and take credit for it and make it available to the community. In the forums, we have something called SME of the Week, which is subject matter expert of the week. And every vendor can take a turn and post there and either talk about something that's timely or ask questions of the members, how they can help or whatnot. The only thing that we don't allow is, because again, we are not just a not-for-profit, we're a vendor neutral trade association. No one can sell inside of our ecosystem, not as far as the cyber forum goes. You can't go in and post, hey, here's my special offer of the day, or here's how I'm going to save you from this if you buy that. That doesn't work in the trade in the association world. So these are organizations that are all truly stepping up for the right reasons, and as I say, being good corporate citizens and sharing information that's of value to members. So we bring all that together in that central hub, and that provides a lot of value.
So you mentioned the forum, you mentioned the Zoom calls that you're doing with members. Are those sort of the chief or only ways in which ChannelPro members, solution providers, MSPs can contribute to the ISAO? I mean, is most of what they do consuming information as opposed to supplying it, or are there more opportunities to sort of contribute and be part of a community?
Oh, no, plenty of opportunities to contribute and be part of the community. Absolutely. Every member can post in any of the forums. We have forums organized around business topics, technologies, vertical industries. We create a lot of forums based on member requests, like a member requested, or a few members requested, that we stand up a forum called Practice What You Preach, where people could put in, this is how I'm addressing this concern or that concern in my business, or this is how I build my security stack. And you can have conversations about that. So that was too long for a name, so we call it PWYP. But it's the eat your own dog food, drink your own champagne, pick your acronym there. But that was, directly from member feedback and requests, hey, we want a place where we can talk about this. So lots of places where a member can engage like that. Members can absolutely share any threat information that they come across. We have a threat submissions bucket where anybody can come in and say, I just saw this. I'm not sure what this is. I think this may be a threat. And our analysts watch that all the time and will pick that up, look at it, and come back and post back so that everybody sees and say, nope, not a threat, false positive, or, a misaligned indicator based on X, Y, or Z, or they'll say, yep, that actually does look like something, and we're investigating, and we'll issue a report on that shortly. So lots of ways to interface. Any member that has the ability to share actual raw threat information via API, via sticks and taxi, any of the common methods of sharing cyber threat intelligence, we can absolutely connect up bidirectionally. We have several members that do that as well, because the more that you have coming in, the richer your base of raw data, and it helps you really correlate that, oh yeah, something really is going on here, because we're not just seeing it here, we're seeing it here, 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 and here. And that paints a very quick picture of what may be going on and what the tactics are that are being used at the moment and how to defend against them.
And then MJ, as far as organizations that are contributing, as far as a vendor in the industry, is CompTIA reaching out to, I'm assuming you're expanding obviously that base to get as much information as possible for threats. Does CompTIA have an actionable list that they're going after, or is it more like organizations are really trying to come in and contribute and you're just betting on what's going to be the most value to be able to provide in that reporting?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Absolutely a little bit of both. Look, where we want the entire ecosystem, the entire channel to participate, right? If anyone listening is familiar with CompTIA, you know that our dues are ridiculously inexpensive. That's by design. As a trade association, you have to charge dues, but our dues are extremely low because we don't want it to be a barrier to entry. I remember, my God, paying CompTIA dues was like the biggest no-brainer of my business career. It was the best value in the business. I could pay for that with just one good piece of content that I used to download and co-brand and share with my customers. So so we want, my point there being, we want everyone to participate. We are an open tent. We would not turn anyone away unless they were not playing by the rules. Obviously, sure. If a vendor is aggressively selling and pitching and whatnot, we can't allow that because our governance doesn't allow that. We're a not-for-profit trade association. As we like to say, you've got to leave your logo and your ego at the door when you come into the CompTIA tent. Everybody has to be working in the best interest of the industry. It's that true rising tide floats all boats. So, absolutely, there are vendors that we are talking to and recruiting all the time. And there are vendors coming to us as well. And as more and more get involved, more come to us. The same is true with our MSPs. We are an MSP trade association by and large. I mean, in the ISAO itself, 92+% of our members are MSPs. It's the overwhelming amount of our members, and that matches the channel, right? There are way more MSPs than there are vendors. But in a perfect world, I want every vendor that works with an MSP involved as well, because if we all work together, we're going to be far more successful at pushing back and eventually getting the offensive advantage back that we don't have right now. And when you look at one of the key reasons why, it's because the bad guys do a much better job talking to each other and sharing than the good guys. And the problem is the bad guys only need to be right once. And those of us on the MSP side need to be right every second of every day. And the government's trying to do a lot better there, but they've got a long way to go. I mean, the government sort of definitely, and when I say government, I'm really talking global, worldwide governments, but, definitely have done the right thing with the construct of an ISAC and an ISAO. but need to do better in terms of transparency and the sharing of threats. Still hold a few too many cards too close to the chest, in my opinion. But organizations like ours, collaborating with our peer organizations and involved with other national and global organizations, we're all working hard to change that for the betterment of the business community and primarily the SMB community, because we know that enterprise, by and large, they've got the resources to deal with this themselves. They've got the large IT teams. SMBs don't. They absolutely don't. And so we've got to come together. It's the only way. You know, one of my colleagues talks about it as a force multiplier, and he's right. You know, it's the only way we can hope to do better in this fight and not lose the battle. But it's a long-term play. It's not going away tomorrow. So it's gonna continue to evolve. We've got to continue to evolve with it. Sorry, I'm probably droning on and went way beyond your question.
No, it's beautiful.
MJ, I'm in Las Vegas. I've been attending the Channel Partners Conference here this week, and I met somebody yesterday who was standing up an ISAO for the channel for the IT community. And I don't know how many other ISAOs might be out there already right now. I mean, is more better for the more ISAOs, the better, as long as they're kind of working with each other? Should people in the audience kind of pick one and go deep? How many ISAOs do we kind of need out there to get this right?
Well, that's a good question. I think, you know, you have to be careful. So one answer to that question is I believe very strongly that ISAOs and ISACs should be collaborating with each other far more than they are. And there are some that are more open to it than others. You know, in some respects, it's sort of similar to the challenge of getting competitive companies to share threat intelligence with each other for fear of, you know, competitive advantage. We really have to take all that off the table, right? There's enough business out there for everybody, but we've got to come together and share. And so, you know, we work very, very closely with the IT ISAC, for example, and the IT ISAC is really an enterprise focused on the IT critical infrastructure segment, you know, the Lockheed Martins, you know, General Motors of the world, the Oracle, et cetera. You know, we focus squarely in the MSP space in the channel because there was a need there. Now, with all of that said, you can't, if too many organizations try to do the same thing, it will dilute and ultimately degrade what we're all trying to do. So, you know, this is the first I've heard that there's another organization out there looking to stand up an ISAO in the channel. I wish they would come and talk to CompTIA. We're an open tent. Let's collaborate and work together. If there are folks that are going to try and do another one for the channel, that's going to confuse MSPs as to, well, shoot, you know, which one should I participate in? Which one's going to help me out? It's not easy to stand up an ISAO. It's expensive. It's resource intensive. It requires a lot of care and feeding. So I would simply say, you know, my personal opinion, based on everything I've seen over the last couple of years in looking at this early stage and standing this organization up and growing it, you know, we've got over 1,200 member companies, and of those member companies, we've got almost 2,000 employees from all those companies active in this. It takes a lot to do that and to sustain that. My personal belief on everything I've seen, talking with my peers and other ISAOs and ISACs, you know, there aren't two aviation ISACs. There aren't two nuclear energy ISACs. Why? Because in one respect, you know, there's somewhat, you know, certainly in nuclear energy, there's a much more limited audience for the ISAO than aviation. There are lots of aviation organizations, but my point is you don't see two ISAOs working against one another in the same market space. Why? Because you're better working together. So, you know, I would, you know, while it doesn't, I'm not concerned about it from a competitive standpoint. I'm not concerned about it from a revenue standpoint, because this isn't a revenue generator for us. This is every penny goes right back in, and CompTIA invests on top of that. So it's not about that. I'd be concerned about multiple ISAOs or ISACs, no matter what the industry is, because it will confuse the ultimate beneficiaries of those undertakings as to, well, which one should I get involved with? You know what I mean? It's funny. It's like you can't have multiple trade associations for the same industry, right? CompTIA is the only and the largest not-for-profit vendor-neutral trade association in the IT industry for a reason. There's only space for one, and fortunately, going back over 20 years, my God, no, more than 20 years, dear Lord, almost 40 years now. Wow, am I losing track of time? The folks that started CompTIA and grew CompTIA from its earliest days just, were in the right place at the right time. And it's turned into this large global organization that supports the industry. So, I don't know if there's a perfect answer to that question, Rich, but hopefully that sheds some light on, well, that was the dog. I'm like, what was that blurb that just went by?
Well, speaking of losing track of time, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much, MJ, for coming on and talking to us. It's a fascinating topic, and I really hope everybody goes and checks out the ISAO and what you have to offer with that. So if somebody did want to learn about that or get in touch with you, where can they go? How can they?
Yeah, you can just go to CompTIAISAO.org, CompTIAISAO.org, or just go out to connect.CompTIA.org, our membership site. It's right there. Anyone's welcome to email me. My email is pretty easy. It's just my name, MJ Shoer, SHOER, @CompTIA.org.
Fantastic. We hope folks go and check that out. And with that, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, Paco Lebron will be back with us on the other side. We'll close out the show and have a little bit of fun. And Rich will tell us, Rich will try to predict the future, and that'll be interesting. Stick around. We'll be right back.
That'll be fascinating. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And welcome back to part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. Rich is still here. Paco is still with us on this part 3 here. So awesome stuff. It was a great interview, I have to say. Really interesting stuff. Rich, was there anything that kind of stood out with some of the things that MJ was talking about?
No, I mean, what I love about ISAOs is it plugs into this idea that everyone is kind of talking about how security really is a team sport, right? And it really, there are a number of different ways that we can kind of level the odds with the attackers, and artificial intelligence is one of those ways, for example. But one of the best, easiest, most accessible ways is for the potential victims of those attackers to collaborate, share information, work together. You are easy to pick off individually. As a group, it's much harder to take people down. So I love seeing organizations that are pulling information together from multiple sources and allowing all sorts of different kinds of organizations to work together towards this enormously important goal.
Now, Paco, you're not a CompTIA member, and I know you didn't know a whole lot about the ISAO. What stood out to you? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, echoing off of what Rich mentioned, I think the collaboration piece is huge. And I think the fact that, a lot of us are just trying to stay ahead of the trends and understand what's kind of going on out there. And this is a great resource to be able to join CompTIA, understand the resources that they've invested in to help us keep, appraised of what's going on and actually developing actionable items for us to really take that back and spread the word to our customers as well.
Yeah, in the modern day of threats on top of threats everywhere, the more we can all work together to stay on top of them and help each other is a good thing, just in general, right? So good stuff. Well, I was glad he was able to join us and talk about that. So going forward here, Paco, last time you were on, I think we did a museum pick back in the day when I still had lots of museum picks to go through, but I don't have very many of those anymore. So, but we've never played 5 questions with you. So I think the time has come. Now, I know you know what it is because I know you listen regularly. But for those who are new listeners or new viewers, 5 questions is a game that we do where Rich and I will go back and forth and come up with 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to ask Paco. I guarantee they will be ridiculous or off topic, just to learn about Paco and have a little bit of fun. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, Rich, I will give you the first question because I'm feeling nice today.
Well, we don't get a museum pick this week, Paco. I know I've asked other guest hosts this question before, but I'll ask it of you too. What was your first computer?
Oh, my first computer was a compact Presario 386, I believe it was. And this predates the one that was like a 5 1/4 floppy disk one, and I don't even remember what the model was that. But my first fledged one was a compact Presario. I think it was an i386. It was on the good old Windows 3.1. So yeah, plenty of solitaire that was played on that, and then moved up to the good old Windows 95, and that's when it was introduced to a lot of the more graphic interfaces, and then obviously ran down the line from there as internet and dial-up and all that good stuff started to come around.
Did your 386 have the little turbo button on the front?
Yep, it sure did.
I love the turbo button.
It sure did.
What did the turbo button do?
I have no clue. I will say that is the first computer I ever repaired as well, because somehow, some way, the OS just went out and it just didn't detect. And I had a buddy of mine who used to work as a cyber navigator at the public library. He says, "Man, you know what? I think I have the 11 3.5-inch discs to reinstall the OS." And sure enough, popped them through and everything came back on magically. And it was all good to go after that. And that was kind of what kind of started my inkling for getting into IT and such.
I'm going to have to look up. I think it had something to do with, like, in older applications, you needed to like limit the clock speed or something. So I think it was something to do with that. But
Okay.
I don't ever remember. I had a 486 that had a turbo button, or was it a 386? I had one at one point that had a button, but I never touched it. It's like,
okay,
why would I not want it to be on turbo, right? Turbo file, everything.
Right.
I'm gonna have to look that up. There'll be a little history lesson that we'll do later on down the road. Cool. So, hey, you know what's kind of also funny about talking about these old computers? I saw an ad the other day. They brought back the Gateway brand. I was trying to see who was building it, but I saw a Gateway computer for sale.
Doesn't Acer own Gateway?
I have no idea. I thought that brand was
they
defunct.
own the brand. Yeah, I know that there was some acquisition way back when. I thought Acer owned it, or at least at the time bought that brand.
It was a cool brand with the cow theme.
Cows, yep.
Yeah,
the stores and stuff.
Brand.
Yeah, yep.
So what's old is new again. Everything's coming back. What do you know? All right, question number 2. Earlier in the show, you mentioned that you might bring donuts to a customer. So let me ask you, favorite donut shop, go.
Okay. I'm a big fan of the jelly donut. That is one of my favorites. If I had to pick, I would have to say Stan's Donut. Is a decently smaller chain that makes really good quality donuts. And then you can't go wrong with Voodoo Donuts as well, which is in downtown Chicago as well. Fun fact though, I know that, and this is a running joke. So and I don't mean to pitch the event, but I have my annual event that I have every year. And there's a community member who was really involved in our podcast network that was previously on with Podnuts, named Matt Rainey. And his thing is every time he would go to these locations, he had to find a great donut shop. So the running gag with our entire community that attends is, what's the donut shop next to the event? And we've specifically planned to make sure that we point out what's a good donut shop to actually go to. And they were a little disappointed this year because with COVID and such like that, we didn't really plan for that. So they went and got Krispy Kreme, and they were definitely a great donut, but they were disappointed they didn't have the quality local avenue of being able to get a good local donut shop.
Yeah, there's lots of good local donut shops. There's one up in Madison that I've been to. I've been to Voodoo Donuts before. I've been to the original one in Portland, actually.
Okay.
But I haven't been to the one downtown. But there's another one that's kind of like that called Hertz Donut.
Okay.
That they have a location up in Madison, and those are really good. I like those a lot. And there's There's another good. There's another. I can't think of it, but it was also downtown, and it will come to me one of these days. But so you like jelly donuts? Any particular kind of jelly?
It's got to be grape jelly.
Grape jelly.
Yep. I'm a grape jelly guy. Yep.
Classic. Rich, what's your favorite donut?
Favorite donut. Yeah, I'm a jelly donut guy too. Actually, I'm not too particular about the jelly, but I mean that's where I'm going first. Trying to think like what's maybe an eclair. I don't know. That's a pastry, not a donut, I guess. There's a place in Seattle, the equivalent, the place to go to for donuts in Seattle, if you're in Seattle, is called Top Pot Donuts. And the one to get there is their apple fritter, which is like the size of your head and amazing. I mean, and that's really the only place that I'm sort of interested in that kind of donut, but it's very good.
I guess I'm more boring. There's a donut that Dunkin' Donuts makes, and I like lots of donut places. Don't get me wrong, but Dunkin' Donuts makes one that's called like the sour cream donut. I don't know if you've ever tried that one. Yeah, no. It is that. I think if I had to pick, if I was like forced to pick a favorite, like you can only have one kind of donut now for the rest of your life. I think that's the one I would pick. So go to Dunkin' and try the sour cream and let me know what you think. All right, Rich. Question number 3 to you.
Well, let's see. We talked about your first computer. What was the first concert that you went to?
So that's interesting because I don't go to a lot of concerts. My fiance loves that concert, so it's a very big talking point. I would have to say that there was, it would have to have been in probably about 10 years ago. There was a concert that was thrown for like anti-violence and gun violence in the city of Chicago. And there was an opening act or a closing act, I should say, that was of the Latin, I forgot what they call it in English, but basically it's the Latin music scene. And there were 2 artists called Joel and Randy was the name of those artists. And so that was the first concert I went to. And then after that, I have to say it was probably a good several years after to go see a good Mark Anthony concert. It was right after that. And being that I'm of Puerto Rican descent, the running gag is that Mark Anthony can do no wrong in our culture. So that's why he's one of those staples in there. So yeah, I think those were probably the 2, but that was the first one I went to.
Interesting stuff. So I'll take question number 4. You grew how old are you? That's not the question.
35.
35. Okay. So you would have been kind of prime in the Super Nintendo Genesis phase, somewhere in there. Favorite console between the ones that were at the time, let's say 16-bit era, favorite console and favorite game.
So it's interesting because I own the Genesis, but I'm a Super Nintendo guy. It was one of those where I just happened to get it and from a relative that was passed down to me. Favorite game on the Super Nintendo would have to be The Link to the Past, Legend of Zelda. That was probably my favorite. No, I lie. I take that back. Mega Man X. That was my favorite game on the Super Nintendo. Yes, I'm a huge Mega Man X to the point where I had got sick down for like a day last year. It wasn't COVID, but just got the flu out of nowhere. And download because I had bought a Switch. First time I picked up a console in like 10 years because I stopped because my business just was so damn busy I couldn't get to it. So I bought a Nintendo Switch Lite. I downloaded the ROMs for Mega Man X, all those series, and ran through the whole gambit again on the Switch.
Interesting. So I liked Mega Man X. My favorite was Mega Man 2, which predates the SNES. I think that was my favorite Mega Man game of all of them. But I'm a little older than you, so that was kind of more my era.
Yeah, I love Mega Man 2 on Nintendo, but yeah, from all those series, Mega Man X was my favorite series of them all.
Interesting. And I was like totally with you when you said A Link to the Past, because I do think that's probably one of the greatest games ever made.
It was,
in my opinion. But,
next to the 64 one. The name is escaping.
Yeah, but Ocarina of Time did not age well. I actually tried to go back and play it not that long ago on the original N64, and I'm having a problem with my cartridge for some reason. But it's rough to look at.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it was an awesome game, and I think there's a remastered version for the 3DS somewhere or something like that. I might try to get that, but that was, it was just, it's just
Sure.
rough to look at, for sure. But certainly a good game. And we're talking about video games and I could go on forever. So Rich, question number 5 to you.
So we know your favorite donut place now. Let's step into a more controversial area in Chicago. What's the best pizza in Chicago?
Oh, this is a good one. So obviously everyone knows there's probably, in Matt, you can correct me, there's 3 mainstays that I always have been aware of. It's Giordano's, Illuminati's, and Gino's East. I feel like those are usually the 3 that everyone picks from as far as deep dish and such.
You could throw Uno's into that list too.
Yeah,
especially
that's
downtown.
true.
But but not as many people probably know that one.
That's true. Plus, they closed a lot of them too, which is pretty sad. I used to love the Uno's over in Schaumburg. That was a go-to place during my 20s. But going back to, I am a Gio's guy. I'm a Giordano's guy. So that is my favorite deep dish pizza. And I will add to the controversy on why I don't like Lou's. I just feel Lou's has a runny sauce and it's too watery for me. I like the thick, sweeter sauce. So I'm a Gio's guy.
It's, if you live outside of Chicago, you almost rave about Illuminati's. If you live in Chicago, though, it is amazing how many more people like Giordano's than Lou's. And I like Lou's like buttercrust better. Folks, I'm from the Chicagoland area too, so this is kind of my area as well. But like I love their buttercrust, more thinner crust pizza. If I go deep dish, though, I do agree Giordano's is probably the superior pie. Yeah. Those fighting words to a lot of people, though.
Oh yeah. That's like trying to say, who has the best steak sandwich in Chicago or whatever. Which for me, it's the Recca Benny's breaded steak sandwich on 26th and Wells. Like, you get a chance to go to Chicago, if you have the chance, Uber there and Uber out. I wouldn't that's around the Comiskey Park where the White Sox play and such. But yeah, great breaded sandwich over there. That's good, authentic Chicago food.
I have never had that one. I'm going to have to try that if I'm ever down in that neck of the woods again. Very cool stuff. Well, Paco, thanks for playing. It's always interesting to learn new facts about people. So Rich, we said on the other side that you were going to try to predict the future. How do you do that?
Well, you know what? First of all, let's gaze into my crystal ball and predict the past, because I'm much better at that, actually. And if you want to know more about the past, what you do every Friday is you come to ChannelProNetwork.com and read our In Case You Missed It post, in which our own James Gaskin catches you up on stories that you may not have had time to dive into. He's going to have all the news from the Microsoft Ignite show this week. Lots of announcements there. He'll kind of pull together the highlights for you. New endpoint security solution from Kaspersky, some other things. He couldn't decide how to end the piece, so he's got a duo coming for you, and a story involving an alligator eating golf balls. We'll learn more about why that's significant, and also because it's election week, he's got a story about an election that is being settled literally by drawing straws, basically, because the votes were tied. Now, in terms of predicting the future, I can just tell you, in terms of what's happening next week, the Q4 meetings of IT Nation Evolve, the former HTG peer groups, they're meeting for Q4, and that leads directly into IT Nation Connect, the big ConnectWise event that's taking place next week in Orlando. I am going to be there. MJ Shoer, who we were speaking with, is going to be there. A lot of folks are going to be there, and in fact, I'll be doing next week's show from there, so we will talk about that in a week.
Sounds like exciting stuff. We've also got some events of our own coming up. You want to tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah. We are our own show that is targeted specifically to our audience in Southern California, but it's virtual only. So theoretically, really anybody could tune into that. Our a show for that Southwest, for the Los Angeles area, takes place November 16th. We've got lots of great content for you on improving your cloud margins, understanding and implementing zero trust security, defining and executing strategic plans. Also coming up on December 8th is our annual Managed Services and Cloud Solutions Online Summit, another virtual only event. Like I said, December 8th. We're going to be talking about the next generation of managed services. So if you are an MSP focused on device management today, that's good, but that's not a long-term sustainable plan for you. So we're going to do a session about what you need to be getting into to stay relevant as an MSP. We're going to be talking about hybrid workforce security. We're going to be talking about, there's a panel on that December 8th event about recruiting and retention, about hiring basically, and keeping the people you hire, which is a very relevant topic right now. So you can check out details about both of those events and other events that we'll be doing. We have a whole lineup of events coming up in 2022, folks. Information about all of that is available at events.channelpronetwork.com, events.channelpronetwork.com.
I can also tease, we are probably mere days away from releasing our 2022 event schedule on that website that you just said, events.channelpronetwork.com. I can tease one thing since Paco's here. Paco, May 2022, I believe May 5th is the date. We will be in Chicago doing an event, a Channel Pro Forum event, live and in person. So hopefully we can get you out to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love going. I mean, I think just to kind of harp on the Channel Pro events, I have not seen, and this is just not because I'm on the show. I mean, from getting involved into the IT industry, Channel Pro was the first live events that me and a lot of the other community members from Podnuts Network and from other things that we are attended. And it's just a different feel. There's a genuine concentration and care on the content being provided, whether it's virtual, which I still think Channel Pro runs the best virtual events, but you know, just the events in general, they're fun, they're interactive, they're timely. You know how to time, how to present vendors information, you know how to present the peer information. I just do not feel that there's an organization that really has that care to relay the information that you all do. There's a lot of great organizations out there that throw a lot of great events. I just think you all just have that uniqueness that is really good. So for those that are considering it, definitely attend when you have the chance.
Thank you so much. We did not ask him to say that, folks. That's all his real opinion. And I always get excited when people say that we do the best virtual events, because that's kind of my baby, and I put a lot of work into those. So, so awesome stuff. Thank you so much for attending. And of course, thank you, Paco Lebron, ProdigyTeks, for being on today, joining us for another episode. It's just awesome to have you here. Take a couple minutes. People want to reach out to you and get in touch with you, learn more about you, learn more about ProdigyTeks, learn about your podcast. Tell us about that. Here's your time to plug away.
Sure. Yeah. For anyone who wants to get a hold of me, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can always connect with me there for ProdigyTeks on my MSP. I also do host a podcast called MSP Unplugged. It's live every Tuesday on YouTube around 11 a.m. Central. Feel free to just go to the website, mspunplugged.com. You can subscribe to updates there, or subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. Or if you're listening to it audio, we're all on the podcatchers as well. You can catch us on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as well. But any of those avenues will be great. We try to keep up with Channel Pro, trying to have a great content and guests on there as well. And really our goal is to help those that are trying to get better at their business as well.
Awesome. So, and I do recommend the MSP Unplugged podcast. It is a really, really good show. Paco and Jeff are awesome. I can't, what's the other guy's name?
John Davinsky.
John, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It was at the top of my head. It's really good stuff. Great show. Make sure you check it out. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and say goodbye. Big thanks to MJ Shoer from CompTIA for being on. And we will see everybody in episode 206, I believe, next week, right, Rich?
That's correct.
Next week. See you then, folks. Take care.